Clement of Alexandria cited from 248 different authors, many of whom were classical writings. So in the early 300s, St. Paula, who was a scholar and a friend of Jerome, he maintained a convent in Palestine. And there was a lot of scholarship and reading and knowledge going on there, and it was emphasized. So if we go all the way to the 600s, St. Benedict of Nursia, he founded a monastic order, and there were all kinds of learning and classical writings and philosophical studies being accomplished there. And this lasted all the way until the 12th century. What happened? Well, in the 600s, Isidore of Seville, which was a Visigothic bishop, right? We're talking about those Goths, those dark Goths, right? They were really a different faction than the leaders of Rome, who came from the Tsars that go back to Babylon. But these Visigoths and these Ostrogoths and these Franks and these Lombards and so forth, these are these tribes, these Germanic tribes that were coming down from the north and from the east, and they began to take over a large part of what was then the Roman Empire, and there was a war going on. They were trying to enlighten people. This was after, the Edict of Milan and the Council of Nicaea and Constantine, because you see, the Catholic Church they were fighting a battle. They didn't want enlightenment. They didn't want nobody to realize, we don't have to obey the Pope. Right? We can be free and have knowledge and be liberated. Well, the Visigoths, they wanted to liberate people. Of course, they were lied about, and people today think of them as these dark, satanic, evil, wicked Transylvania bloodsuckers, right? But interestingly enough, the movie Batman portrays these people as what they may actually have been, right? People who are trying to help and to save mankind and to protect us from the imperial Rome, as well as the imperial popes, is what they were. So this Isidore Seville was a Visigothic bishop, and he wrote books, and there was all this learning going on. After King Ricard of Spain converted to Catholicism in 587, and this was after the Third Council of Toledo, that was those Germanic tribes that were coming down and becoming more and more powerful, that German aristocracy, they turned to the classical cultural writings, and even the sovereigns of all of that area, they protected these books and writings. This was the climate in which Isidore of Seville lived. And people were reading and learning, and all of this knowledge was growing. And this was a long-standing tradition. But see, friends, once we get past the Constantine era, then we're starting to see from the Catholic side of the aisle, we're seeing all this imperial censorship and efforts to tamp down all these classical writings and this pagan information. And their monasteries and so forth that was being put out there by the Catholic Church, their scribes, they would sort of just lose all this information and burn these libraries. And see, this was a war. And part of the war was propaganda. This is why to this very day, obviously the Catholic Church won and the Goths lost. The Visigoths, the Ostrogoths, the Hurleys, the Vandals, the Lombards, these were the Germanic tribes that came down, and they lost the battle eventually because the Catholic Church won. And in doing that, they had to make lies about the Goths. Oh, they're wearing black and they're all sucking blood. They're all from Transylvania and they're all vampires or witches, and we had to burn them all at the stake. And of course, we had to burn all their pagan literature. All this literature, this pagan, evil, wicked sorcery. It was simply science. This is what they considered sorceries, right? Some of this stuff survived down to the days of Sir Isaac Newton. Today we consider this science and mathematics, which the church considered sorcery and witchcraft. Pretty interesting. So basically all of this information and wisdom and classical writings were, even though the Catholic Church tried very hard to burn down the Alexandrian library and wipe all this stuff out, you see, the the empire split, and there was the eastern part and the western part. And that part over there by Constantinople, they didn't agree with the Romans. So you see, they kept some of the literature there in Constantinople. Even though originally that's where Constantine started his career, all right, the one who started Christianity. But it wasn't very long after that that the Byzantine Empire split off from the Roman Empire. And so for a long time there was still knowledge being allowed over there in Constantinople, but not in the West. So in the West they burned their library. But see, some of these people took some of those books over to the Imperial Library in Constantinople and preserved it. And it got all the way down to Sir Isaac Newton and many of these Galileo and Descartes and all these other people who were learning and reading this stuff. Well, around the year 1200, we've talked about, there was this big fight. And the Catholic Church created the Jesuit priests because, you see, the Goths were winning. Batman was winning. He was protecting, and he had the Templar Knights, and they had the vow of poverty, and they were protecting the servants and protecting the Holy Grail, the knights that came down with the Goths. And they built their Gothic cathedrals and kept their manuscripts of knowledge and classical wisdom and science. But all that was considered sorcery to the Roman Catholic Church. So there was a big war. Well, in around 1204, they burned down the Imperial Library in Constantinople. Oh my goodness. It appears that they were beginning to win the battle. Evil began to win this long, contracted battle. And it was this, as if, there was this iron curtain that was just put over all classical writings and ancient wisdom. And anyone like Sir Isaac Newton would come along and try to teach the world, or Galileo, then they were put on crosses and killed and martyred in front of everyone. To make an example of them. You're not going to teach this stuff. You're not going to teach this sorcery, what we call science. You're not going to teach this enlightenment, which we call Luciferian ignorance and evil. So they made an example out of these people. Well, you see, what happened is these protectors of the truth went forward and they went underground, and they started building cities in London, and they came to America and they set up the Constitution. So you see, they didn't win. The torch of liberty still stands in the bay right outside of New York City. They didn't lose. See? They just kept going underground and publishing the truth and going forward. But the wicked one did not give up, friends. And the Jesuits in 1540 were created to infiltrate all these institutions of learning and to corrupt them and to bring them down. And this fight's still going on today. But the pre-Resi map is proof that information that they had in these libraries of ancient times was vast and far more technologically advanced than we have even today, because it went back all the way to the time of ancient days, perhaps 450,000 years in the past. All of this wisdom is what the Catholic Church was trying to eradicate. And to a large extent, they have succeeded almost entirely, because here we are in the 21st century where we appear to have such enlightenment, but in reality it is just control and propaganda. The knowledge is still going forth. You can get on the internet and find out just about anything you want to know. They cannot stamp out the truth. The only thing they can do is lie to you and get you so confused that you can see the truth right in front of you and you won't believe it. This is how they have succeeded. 90% of people in the world no longer will accept truth when you hand it to them on a platter. You see, the truth is there. You can look it up for yourself, but you're going to have to weed through the garden and get all the weeds out first, and you've forgotten what a weed is and what a flower is. You're to the point where your sensibilities aren't even capable of noticing a beautiful, fragrant flower. You can't tell the difference between that and an old weed. And so you're pulling out the flowers and cultivating weeds. Friends, they have totally brainwashed you. We're going to have to wake up. All right? If something sounds stupid, You know, like a fairy tale, like it ain't true. It's probably not true. All this, insanity that we've been told we're going to burn in hell forever, that's all lies. The truth, that ancient wisdom, it's still shining. The torch is still standing there in the bay. And that torch of liberty and its original purpose will not fail because of certain individuals who are not afraid, who are courageous, and carry on the fight for us. Let's join them, friends. Let's be courageous. And, of course, this book of Revelation tells the story in its symbolic manner that the dragon went after the woman and persecuted her. See? But in the end, the book of Revelation says they will overcome the beast by the word of their witnessing, and they love not their souls even unto death. What do you think that's talking about, friends? If you're a Catholic, do you think that's talking about you? When were you, as a Catholic, ever persecuted? You are the persecutors. You are the ones, you Catholics, who put them to death. And what did you put them to death for? For the enlightenment that they were trying to offer the world. You are nothing but darkness. And the Pope is not our Pope. He's not our Papa. He's not our Father. And he doesn't offer us any critical thinking or any knowledge or an enlightenment. Only dead ceremonies that lead to death. And the darkening of the mind and the dampening of the human soul. We need to wake up now, friends. And you, if you're a Christian, you need to open your eyes and begin thinking. And allowing your mind to think without prejudice. And stop beating yourself over the head with this bat of guilt. And telling yourself that you're going to hell if you don't, if you let your mind think about things that you've been thinking about, and you start doubting all this fairy tales and lies that you've been told, you start to feel guilt. And then you go back to the church and you start crying and you say, I found Jesus, right? And you didn't find Jesus at all, but you're just scared. You're afraid to move forward because they've scared you. They put the fear of hell inside you. And that's not the fear of our Father in heaven, that's the fear of Satan. And you don't need to fear him, because you see, there is no fear in love. And our Father is love. And there is no darkness in union with him. He has forgiven you. You are forgiven. It is over. It is done. It was finished on that cross. Jesus even forgave those who killed him that day. Why would he not forgive you even more? You who sit and weep for joy because he has saved you. And you will love others because he first loved you. And there's nothing that you could have possibly done that would ever exclude you from his kingdom. Friends, the kingdom of our Father in heaven, the kingdom of our Lord Jesus Christ is within you. Now, will the Christ finally have room in your heart to be born? This is the question. Will you become free? Because Jesus, our Lord, has set us free. And it's time that we are free. Well, friends, this here's David Vos, and I'm going to go ahead and sign out now. This has been a series of videos, and this may continue on in this kind of vein for a few more videos. If any of you feel that there is some things that I have not covered, let me know in the information box, and we'll cover some of those points as well. So friends, let's go ahead and get this information out to everyone we know. We've got to work tirelessly to get this truth out. We're all free. This is the message, the gospel of Jesus Christ and his grace. So you guys have a great week, and this is David Vos, and we'll pick it up here with the next video that's coming up.